I still love this thing. Makes it seem all kind of official on that. Here we are, Season 2, Episode 10. This is where I wanted to be by the 10th episode. We went from a messy corner of my train room, messy closet, it's all cleaned up. I have a fully functional train yard. The first layer, the first section of the build is just about complete. There's not much more left to it. Before long, we'll be moving into the other sections. Top layer, designing actual really cool things, putting little accents on this one, doing all kinds of really fun things, the little nuances that a person puts in and they enjoy doing it, and maybe nobody out there would even take a second look at it except for me, because I put it in. I think of it kind of like I went to a place called Entertainment. We did a whole episode on it. They were very kind. Went to the back. They let me ask any question. They answered everything, and it was wonderful. That was a while ago, but one thing I learned when I went back there, they had all these Easter eggs, superheroes, figures or whatever, that the kids would have a list and they would scurry all over the place and they would look into every nook and cranny and try and find. And even though some of the modelers may not have agreed with it all that much because it wasn't exactly what they were looking for, one thing these little Easter eggs did do was it called attention to the little bits of the design that normally people would just kind of glance at and keep moving on. No, they took a much deeper appreciation into them. That's kind of like with this layout. You've been with me since the beginning. And by this point, I wanted to have this section of the layout done. The only thing I have left that I want to be able to do for this section, my double helix. I want to start raising it up. I want a 2% grade. We went over why. It's going to put it at the right height. The easiest way that we have to start this double helix is with this is a 2% grade made of foam. Just the right size to put my track on. And it flexes around turns. I start in here, I work its way around. Nice and smooth, nice and solid. Then when we get to the point where we're going over top of it, well, that's something special I cooked up. And we'll get to play with that later too. Let's dig into it. It's going to be fun. Alright, here we go. Got my learning hat on. 2% grade. That's what we decided we were going to use. We figured we can do our full circle. So we're going to go in here. We're going to do our circle. By the time we come back around to this point, we'll be high enough that the train can go underneath it. So we can helix all the way up. Not a problem. So I have a section of track, section of track, section of track, section of track. Now here's an important thing that you may not realize. When I go to start my 2% grade, and when I finish it, I have to be careful. Reason for that is, get rid of this guy. Looks like I need a bigger eraser, don't I? Okay. So I have a section of track here. And then I started another section of track. I want to start my 2% grade. If I start my 2% grade right here and tell it to start going up, what's going to happen is, at this junction, I'm going to have kind of a really, it's going to be kind of abrupt. I'm actually going to be at a 2% angle. But I can reduce this quite a bit. Say I start my incline, my 2% incline here. Okay, when I get to that point, all right, so now I have started my 2% incline about halfway up the track. What this means is, at this point, it's going to be about a 1% grade right at that junction. It's a lot smoother for the train to go up. And then I'll have a little 1% grade right here for the next piece of track. So instead of a 2% right in one spot, I have a 1% plus a 1%. 1 plus 1 equals 2. This will ensure that the train runs much smoother in the transition. And then when we come out of this transition, we're going to smooth it out again so that it, instead of just going, boom, well, instead of going like that, we're going to try and do something a little smoother so that we won't have a problem. But that's for a different video. This is the reason why I'm going to start my riser about halfway up that piece of track. These risers are pretty cool. Let's go into how we use them. Here we go with our 2%. It looks flat, but it's actually a rise over run. Thicker here, thinner here. And because of the shape, I can flex it around turns, and I can do a very smooth ramp up. This thing starts with a very thin piece, if I can find it. Let me see here. Yeah, here it is. Starts extremely thin. Whoa! Gets a little thicker. And I just glue them one into another all the way around until I get to the end. Then when I go to overlap, I got something special for that. How do I put all these together? Wow! I'm back. Gorilla Wood Glue actually works really well. And for that first loop, it's going to give me a very stable platform. I'm going to be using risers for a lot of the rest of it, but this will make it just a little more rock solid for me. Good times. Here we are. Let's see. I got these two pieces of track. This thing might actually work better if I would have used a unitrack instead of the two. This is what I have. We're going for it. Pull up some of these nails a little bit. Okay. We'll go ahead and raise this. I don't have to raise it a lot. I'm just going to slide this underneath. And I'm going to go about halfway. That gives me a little ramp. Remember what we were talking about. 1%, 1%. Because it's such a small difference, you really don't notice the difference there. That's good. I got a more smooth transition. I'll go ahead and drive these nails back into the table through this, and I'll be using nails to go through here into the styrofoam, just to kind of hold it in place so that waiting for the glue to dry. Let's get going with it. It'd be cool. Always get glue on the tip. Always have to peel it up. I know I can get a little silly on these things sometimes. But remember, these videos are for everybody, especially for kids. That's one of the reasons why when I did this one, I purposely set it up so that a kid could do this, and let me think how to put it. He doesn't have to have special tools. He can go down to his local hobby shop. He can just buy the piece he wants, puts them together, and he can have the same layout. Well, close to the same layout. Alright, let's see if we can get this to go. I don't need a ton of glue or anything. I just want to anchor this into place. And then once I smush it down, this stuff will spread out and it'll work out really well for me. Here we go, so to speak. Slide this right underneath, about halfway. I'm going to get it centered up on the track. Yes, I have a little mess there, but that's fine. Go ahead and take my spacer out here. Let this kind of fall down on top of it. I like the way it's looking. These nails are close enough to the table where they'll actually drive all the way through. Gotta get my punch. We'll drive them through. Aha, one punch. I'm hitting it kind of light. I want these to be flush, but I don't want to drive it in too bad. One of the reasons for gluing it here is there's a slight gap, just because this angle different than that angle, but they kind of meet up right here. At this point, I'll be taking this apart, and I will be gluing this down and anchoring it here. So since I'm anchoring it to this track, it'll hold its form, its curve, and then gluing the bottom side of it, it'll glue it down into place. Look pretty good. Yeah. Here we are with the glue. I'd actually already gone through and glued the entire underside of this one. Just set it down into place. A little bit of a turn there. I want to try and get this as lined up as I can. I like evenness. I already have my holes here. So I'm going to be using these little nails to run through my track. And I'm not really anchoring the track to it. I'm just locking this into place so it stays, it doesn't flop out. All things being equal, the styrofoam would like to go straight, but I want it to turn, and this is how we do it. Yep. This first piece of track is the first one that's actually flush with it. Remember, this one has that little bit of a gap. This one's actually flush. This is actually traveling at 2%. My second piece of track I'm going to put in. I already have my holes drilled. I'm actually going to put some Gorilla Glue on the top side of this, and this is just going to kind of cement it together and make this a little bit more stable. And this is just to make it a little more solid. So I have this piece, snap it into place. Now that it's in place, I'm going to put in a couple of nails just to hold everything where I want it. We talked before about nailing these down. I told you one nail per piece of track is pretty sufficient for holding the whole thing in place. And it is in the most part. Since I'm going on the styrofoam and I want it to stay nice and tight to the styrofoam, and I want the styrofoam to have a nice gradual curve around with it, I'm actually using both ends, and on these pieces, here we go. Now on these pieces I actually have holes for one in the middle. I'm using those too. Partially to keep the whole arc going, partially because of the design of the styrofoam. I don't always know if the nail is going to go into the styrofoam or miss it. It increases my chances. And I think this is looking pretty good. So we're going to test it here in a minute and see how we're doing. And I think I got my first piece of foam in here. Got my first piece of track, whole long piece. This is going to be kind of a slower process because I want to make sure I get it right. One of the things I'm going to be doing, putting a little weight on this so that I can make sure that the glue settles really nice. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. So, let's see how it does. Okay, we need a little weight. Ultimate Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Not only being a bit thick, it's a really good read. It's a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot. We'll let that set. We'll do the next piece. It won't be real fast, but the quality of the work when we're done will be much better.